this episode, we dissect our interview with Greg. KRABBY struggles to say Bugatti, and I turn Porsche into an SUV company. This is Grenadier Works. All right, well, folks, we are back. Audio only, probably, at this point, so you are spared having to see us, which, as we know, as I said this morning in a post, we look better in low definition, and we look even better if you take your glasses off. But it was, a week ago Saturday, I'm sitting on my couch, and I get a text message from Stu, and then it was a whirlwind couple of days that culminated in being the first, to the best of our knowledge, the first two non-journalists, non-fancy media, non-employees to drive a Grenadier on the road. And this was not my doing, but the forum, and in particular Stu, has forged several relationships with Ineos, and that's why we were where we were. So Stu, why don't you just kind of fill people in? Because in the video podcast, we were kind of quick about it, but maybe some people really would like to know the backstory a little more. And since you were the man to make it happen, why don't you relay that story?
So I got a text message from Greg on Saturday morning prior to us driving, and he said, "Hey, Stu, we're going to be in town on Tuesday. We'd love to have you and meet in person. Come down and we can meet and go for a drive. You can bring, one or two people, your wife or something." I said, "Well, how about KRABBY?" Because my wife, although she likes a Grenadier, she's like, it's just a car for me. So I messaged KRABBY, and he moved heaven and earth and managed to get a flight over. He literally jetted across the country to test drive a car, which I've never done that. Obviously, the interview was always on the cards, and we've been hoping to get Greg on the podcast for quite some time, and he'd said yes. It was just scheduling. So then Greg got back to me, and he said, "Well, do you want to rent a studio and we can record a podcast?" And I was thinking, this is sounding a little bit too flash for us. We're a little bit more low key and slightly more janky. It's like the used car that's been through the mud sort of approach to life. So I said, "Well, as we're there, how about we do a fly on the wall documentary style thing, sort of like comedians in cars, but neither of us are funny. Then just record that, and it can just be, a flowing conversation between a couple of guys or three guys in the car," which I think we absolutely nailed. The main thing was the audio. Once,
right, and that got screwed up too, but it was good enough.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't too displeasing to hear, and just the and I've said it before in the forum and on the YouTube comments, just Greg pulling back the curtain and formally discussing with us on the record about the process to bring the Grenadier to market, about the intent in North America, how for them it is the most important market just by the sheer characteristics of how you buy vehicles here in the volume. I thought was really, really good, and it was unusual for somebody very, very high up in an automotive company to be able to do that, which he referenced, and he said, "Look, I didn't get to do this with Land Rover or Mercedes. This company afford me this ability to, let's say, go off the script a little bit in dealing with people like us. There's no way AMG would have sat down and talked to us."
No. And I put in a post this morning that, one of the things that was important, I think, to both of us, and it's certainly more evident and probably less of a hurdle with Greg than if it would be some, who's ever the president of some other company that makes cars. But he's a real guy, and he's a car guy. Like, it's not just his career. Just like for all of us, it's stuff that we're interested in. And I loved, as we were cruising around, and again, we only had the one, the camera views, but the three of us were driving around, and you were concentrating pretty good on driving, and for good reason. So I was in the back seat. Exactly. But I was in the back seat with my head on a swivel, because there's so many cars everywhere in California, and they're not rusty.
No, there's a lot of cool old stuff.
Yeah. And so for Greg, as we're driving, like, "Whoa, look at that," or, "Oh, look at that." I hoped that came across to people that yes, all right, he has a very important job, and and all that sort of stuff. But he's still a car guy at heart. That's why he's been in this business for 25 years or whatever, between the different manufacturers that he's worked for. And when push comes to shove, we're going to see him at events. We're going to see him involved with these vehicles in their element, in connection with the dealer groups that they put together and our club.
Absolutely. And just the conversations that we've had about trying to set up some sort of annual get together or biannual one. We just need enough of the actual purchasers and the people that own the Grenadier to say, this is what we want to do, to be able to host these events and actually, and to put them forth and to make them a success.
Right. And on a personal level, my dealer is it's actually Devon, Pennsylvania, but we just say Philly area. Okay. Because I think realistically, for someone who lives in California, you've heard of Philadelphia. You probably haven't heard of Devon, Pennsylvania. Where they're located happens to be in Pennsylvania. And if you drive west 2 hours, or not even, and if you drive northwest, there's off-roading parks right there, like designed for that stuff. So, knowing that RDS, and we'll talk about our dealers, but RDS, they do track days because they sell sports cars. So hopefully they put that same level of effort into off-roading events, even though it'll be a much smaller customer base. When I spoke to the sales rep, Michael, who's now on our forum, Michael Juliana, he said they had over 500 orders at the Philadelphia location.
Wow,
RDS. So, if you think about it, that's nearly, it's shy of 10%. It's about 7%.
Yeah, it's just what did Greg say? It's like 7,300.
He said it's over 72.
Yeah. So, those aren't just reservations. Those were people that have said, yes, I want this vehicle. So those, regardless of if they buy them, they're being made and they're being sent to America.
Mm-hmm. But on the other side of it, and you and I have had this discussion, but even if they sell 10,000 here in the first year, okay, they sell something like over 250,000 Jeep Wranglers a year in America.
Where do they all go?
I
don't mean they dissolve and turn to dust and the elements go back into the ether. It's like, where do the 250,000 Wranglers a year go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. But without kidding, people like me who live at the beach, they don't last very long. No vehicle does. If you actually live on the beach, which I don't, but I do, and your vehicle's outside by seawater all the time, they don't last very long. And so when I say very long, if you get 10 years, you're feeling pretty good about it.
Wow.
So
that's really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I remember when I was a kid, my dad had bought a postal Jeep, a DJ dispatch Jeep.
I've seen those. I read an article about a dude that got one that was almost dead and he drove it home and he said it was the best and worst drive of his entire life. I think it could only do 25 miles an hour or something.
Well, so my dad bought it and the body was in great shape. Okay. Everything else, the frame, everything was shot.
Yeah.
So what he wound up doing was he bought a wrecked Wrangler, or no, then it would have been a CJ, and mated them together. Took the really good body from the DJ, put it on the regular CJ frame, because like I said, the body was in good shape because it was painted and that was cared for, but all the steel underneath, it just gets pummeled by salt air, which is just not good for steel.
So would that be a CJD Jeep then?
I don't know what you would call it.
Well, it's both. CJD.
CJDJ.
It's very,
like
very
AC/DC,
sought after. Very, very sought after model now.
Yeah.
There's
on a totally unrelated note, because I said CJDJ. I just want to share this that maybe many of our American viewers don't know. Apparently, in Australia, they often refer to AC/DC as akadaka. I saw an interview with Brian Johnson, interviewed by some TV journalist from Australia, and that's what she called them, akadaka.
Wow, I'm sure that we are going to get a lot of correction
Either
on
lit
this
up
if you're wrong.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, that's what she said. It was a good interview.
Regardless, and this is what we touched on when we were speaking to Greg, is even at full capacity, this is still going to be a pretty rare vehicle.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you go. In 20 years, not quite so rare, because they'll still be around, whereas other things just corrode and turn to nothing. But it's still going to be a rare car.
Right, because look at it this way. Let's say it's $10,000 a year, which is, it's not going to be, but let's say it's $10,000 a year. Okay. After 25 years, there's the same amount as there are, in theory, 2024 model Jeep Wranglers.
Yeah.
Think about that. So it's going to be rare. They're going to sell less vehicles than Ferrari.
I know, that stat is crackers.
Right? Now, granted, it's only one model. So it's, it's not like Ferrari sells 10,000 of any particular model, but in sum total, they sell more than that. Same thing with Lamborghini and all those marks. Even if you exclude, look at Porsche sales and don't include the SUV ones.
Yeah, I mean, Porsche is an
SUV. Put them to the side, and they're still going to sell more.
Yeah, but Porsche is an SUV company that has a sideline in sports cars. Unfortunately, if you look at the order books, that's what it is. But the sports car bit makes the SUVs a lot more fun.
Oh yeah, God, I've always referred to a 911 as an attainable. I guess at this point you wouldn't refer to them as supercars, but for me, regular Joe Schmo, I'll never have a Ferrari. But a 911 is attainable because you can get one that's used and have some faith in it and know that it's not going to cost you $1 billion to have it.
I've got to say something here. There's two words: previous owner.
Well,
all of that. I've got a caveat with that. It's like, you do not know.
No,
we're not. This isn't a Porsche podcast. We're not going to get into IMS bearing failures. And
no, I'm just saying though, at least
that if
it's
you know anything about
911,
you know about.
Yeah, but for me, when I look at RDS, okay. They sell Ferraris and they sell Lamborghinis and they sell Maseratis and they sell
Koenigseggs,
McLarens, Koenigsegg, BAC Mono, the BAC Mono.
Sounds like a disease.
Bugatti. They have a Bugatti dealership.
Oh, there's lots of those.
So there's, and they're one of, I think, two certified workshops to work on McLaren F1s. I think there's only two in the country. And in fact, they actually might be both of them because they have a Greater Philly McLaren store and they have one somewhere out in California.
Did you know that the McLaren F1s rely on a Windows laptop that's running Windows? No, hang on. It might even be DOS. It's either DOS or Windows 95. Yeah. It's the only thing that will talk to the ECU because it's so primitive.
Wow, that's interesting. That is very interesting.
See, as I said last time with Greg, this is a social service, not just an entertainment piece. So if you want to try and help the McLaren F1 world, because those people could do with some financial assistance at times, is make sure that you keep that really, really old laptop going. The battery can be goosed. It doesn't matter. As long as you've got the charging cable, you'll be all right.
Yeah, man, because nothing... That kind of stuff is not backwards compatible.
No, not at all.
You're not taking a brand new Sony laptop or Dell or whatever. Does Dell still make computers?
I don't know, but whatever happened to the ones at the Cow Computer Company? Do you remember the boxes?
That's Dell.
Skin? Is it? Oh,
That's Dell. Yeah. No, wait, I take that all back. I'm wrong. Gateway was the ones with the cow box.
I'll have my laptop, adorned with cow skin, please.
Yeah. Yep. So, but hey, you remember it all these years later.
That's right.
That's the thing about gimmicks.
And the McLaren F1 has the same wing mirrors. The same wing. I love this stat. The same wing mirrors as a Jaguar XJ220, a Lotus Esprit, the Stevens version, and the other car is a Citroën CX, I believe. So, and it's a Citroën design. So, for all of those people that have McLaren F1s and XJ220s, if you break your wing mirror, you can go to a Citroën breaker's yard and get a replacement for 20 quid.
Yeah, how
you
crazy
don't have to
is
break
that?
the bank with your multi-million-dollar supercar.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, I mean, if you're the guy or woman, man or woman, whatever, I just say guy generically, who designed that mirror for Citroën, for whatever, it's not like Lotus are the ones who said design this for us, or McLaren. It was Citroën said, we need a mirror for this probably practical family car, because Citroën does that. But now
it's a very nice design. It's teardrop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's timeless. That's the thing.
And it's heated.
So,
are there heated wing mirrors in the Grenadier? I don't even know.
Yes, there are.
Well, there are. Yeah. Citroën was very forward thinking in the 1970s.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is the Grenadier does have heated mirrors, at least in one of the packages. In America, it's automatic. I think it may be the smooth pack that is not an option in America. Like, we automatically have it. But yeah, it has that.
Now that smooth pack, I've spoken to Greg. It was when they were announcing the pricing. And one thing that I will say that people probably don't know is that he desperately tried to get a 6 in front of the number for the sales price.
Yeah.
Every which way he could, and he just couldn't make it work. And now you saying about the smooth pack, because at the time I didn't know that was, baked into the American version. I wonder if they didn't have that, it would have been $6,999,999,999.
Well, because it's only $1,500 away from that, right? $71,500.
That's right.
And so, the smooth pack, I think, is worth about that much. If you were to convert the dollars and spec it elsewhere. But I think that for us, the soft pack, Jesus, it's neither smart nor soft. It's smooth. But I think that includes things that are mandatory.
Yeah.
In America. Including, like, I think that's why the backup cab or backup camera and whatever's in it. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I don't think that stuff is optional in America. I think you have to have it. So it was baked in.
So we need to thank some government agency.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I know we always bounce around. I'm bad at it, and you yell at me because you have an order for all this stuff, but we bounce around, and that's okay.
I don't have an order today. I've got three words in a notebook.
Yeah, yeah, basically. But that's how the trip came together, and then it literally was, all right, well, let's try to get some gear. We went to Best Buy and spent. Wait, let me rephrase that. We went to Best Buy and Stu spent a lot of money.
But I still not told the wife.
Okay, yeah,
Don't tell her. Don't tell her.
Stu went to Amazon and spent a lot of money.
Don't tell her about that either. That's on the shadow account that she can't see.
Yes. I didn't say a word. I almost did, though. The kids almost overheard me. That would have been done. You would have been toast.
They can't keep a toast. They can't keep a secret to save their lives.
I know.
Hey, Mom, Dad said not to tell you this.
Correct. So that's how it all came together.
Yeah, but even on the day, so the whole thing, they were in Long Beach. They were prepping the cars for the inspections and everything. They were driving up, and anyone that spent any time in California or seen any sort of news about California it's famous for its traffic, and not necessarily in a good way. So
Yeah.
we met at, what time was it? Was it 3 o'clock?
It's around,
Wasn't it?
yeah, it was between 3 and 4.
And we hadn't decided and where we were going to meet until about 1:30. Bearing in mind, they're coming from Long Beach. We're coming from, Southwest LA. And it was like, okay, where do we go? Where we need a road that's quite nice. We don't want too much traffic. We're in rush hour. And that's how Topanga Canyon came up. And
Topanga, yeah.
And then it was like, where are we going to meet? And then it's like,
right.
Oh my gosh, we can't reach a parking lot because there are going to be some groupies there. However flattering that is, it's like you don't want a million questions when time is super limited with these guys.
Yeah.
And they were shoehorning us in before their next event that evening.
Yeah.
So
and I, one of the questions that appeared on the forum, in the thread about episode 4, and someone was like, asked, did you get was there curiosity about it? And if for anyone who didn't read that thread, I basically explained that I was the one who got to see everything else, because Stu was rightfully concentrating on driving, a totally new vehicle with a little bit different dynamic in late afternoon, greater LA traffic. While the CEO is sitting next to you, the sun is in your eyes. It's just all of that. And so I was in the back seat just with my head on a swivel, and I'm seeing everything. Like, I saw that first generation Bronco that was behind that fence. I saw the whitish Defender 90 County that wasn't NAS. Then I saw the green NAS one.
The rag top.
Yeah. We saw the Mercedes, I was spinning around, and then I was watching people, especially at that first place where we stopped. Remember where we were having trouble making a left out of there?
Yeah.
And I was just watching. Yes. And I was just watching the traffic, and there was a dude in a lifted 4Runner who stared at us the whole time.
Really?
Because he maybe knew what it was.
Yeah. I know we got a lot of looks from the Rivian drivers and the new G-Wagon people. There's one G-Wagon that went past us and slowed down about 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was a lady as well. That wasn't a guy.
Well, do you remember when we stopped at we stopped at the front sort of of that development? I don't know if it was like a senior development or whatever. And that lady came walking over while we were adjusting the dog. Yeah. I really wish that had been recorded, because she was very funny. And asking good questions.
She asked if we were making a commercial, and we said no. And it was Greg that was actually speaking to her, and he was very cordial, and he entertained her.
Yeah, and she says,
I really like the car. I love that color. So if you need your grandmother or your mother to sign off, or maybe even your wife, depending on your age, to sign off on the color of your Grenadier, for ladies of a certain age, the Elderate Blue definitely shines.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and there were people looking. It's just, it wasn't on the video because of what you could see. But
the
there
technical failure that we had. It would have been on the video. All of the waves, all the things. I tried doing a couple of Grenadier waves to people in Jeeps, but I thought they might. They're like, he's being a little bit rude to me because we were doing it's a classic Churchill way.
Yeah, but you can only do that to another Grenadier. But I was thinking about it after the fact. So this was Tuesday evening. I flew home Wednesday morning. And so, I have a lot of time to think, hanging out in the airport and on the plane and stuff. And
how many hours was it to get back to the East Coast?
It was just shy of, it was 5 and change, 5.5 maybe.
So you basically
it's longer coming than going because of the jet stream.
So you basically spent about 11 hours on an aircraft to drive a car for 20 minutes.
Literally, yes.
What a stat. Just think about your CO2 emissions for that test drive.
Yeah, well, the air travel's the worst out of everything, even though they attack the car. But when I thought about it afterwards, I'm like, we were so like, I didn't take my time to absorb the experience. You know what I mean? Like I know we didn't have a ton of time, but it would have been nice to have actually sit there and played with the infotainment unit a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't touch any of that stuff. It was like we got in, we drove.
Well, as you can see, if you watch the video, we get to the point where I say to Greg, "Oh, should we turn in?" He's like, "No, carry on," because he wanted to carry on talking and tell the story. The whole idea was we were going to pull up in the parking lot, and I'm going to give them a shout out. Thank you very much, Rosenthal Wineries, for allowing us to use your parking lot while you were closed, to use as our own personal parking lot and place to stage the cars and stuff. I don't know who owns it, but thank you very much for that.
Free shout out.
And incidentally, it's actually pretty cool to go there on the weekend. They have live music and stuff, and it's a nice venue. So if you're in the area, then definitely swing by and say hi, and let them know that you heard about them from this outlet.
Yeah, and that's you know what, it worked out great.
It did, but getting back to what I was supposed to be talking about, I said to Greg, "Oh, hey, do we turn in here?" And he's like, "No, carry on," because I thought we were going to change over drivers at Rosenthal, and you were going to drive from there, and that's how we ended up at the base of Malibu at the Southern Point.
Right.
And it was just nice that he wanted to carry on the conversation. I won't call it an interview because that's a little bit too serious for us.
Yeah, it makes it seem like we know what we're doing.
We were having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what?
And that's where we found out about chips.
Yes, which I think that's a great story. It was either an episode of Top Gear or like a newer one, because Chris Harris was part of it, where they were discussing their favorite fiction cars, like from a TV or from a movie.
Oh, yeah.
And so even though the Chips motorcycles aren't cars, but it sort of falls into that same category too, where that was part of the draw as a kid, was the motorcycles.
Yeah.
We were all, when did that show even come out? We were all probably like 7, 8, 9.
It was in the 70s, Chips.
Right? At late 70s, early 80s.
It's like the Fall Guy. It was all at the same time.
Oh, God. Speaking of vehicles, he had that GMC with the eagle on the hood.
Oh, I know.
It was brown, but it was a sweet truck.
It jumped higher because of the eagle.
Well, of course.
it got some airlift assistance from the plastic wings.
Well, you know what? I don't know how it is in the pickup world, but like my nephew has a Civic Si, really nice car, really, really nice car.
You've got a Honda thing going on, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, hey, they're good cars. They last forever.
I did have a Ridgeline for a while.
You admit that in public? Don't admit that in public.
Yeah, the tumbleweed just came past me.
Yeah, exactly. Don't admit that. But if you have a Civic, every sticker you add is usually between 3 and 4 horsepower. So I don't know how much horsepower the Eagle added to that truck, but it must have been substantial.
I wonder how many they broke, because it seemed to do a massive jump every single episode.
Okay, so
is it like the General Lee where you got 900 totally wrecked Dodges?
Right. Well, that's
all painted orange.
So my wife's family, her mom's side is from Syracuse, New York, and her grandfather worked for Chrysler for 50 years, whatever it was.
My gosh, the car heritage is strong with you guys.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And so her brother, my brother-in-law, has a 1970 Charger that he rebuilt. And 69s, which is what the General Lee was, and there's subtle differences. If you know, but they're still pretty similar looking. But 69s are so desirable because so many of them got destroyed. There's so few left. That there were, I don't know if you've ever seen the photographs, but they're like our pictures of where the show was recorded, and it's just wall to wall Chargers. Like, because anytime they saw one, they bought it.
Wow.
And it's funny because if you were an A team, did you watch the A team?
Back then, now that would be a massive coup for a company to get that much screen time with a vehicle. But back then, I bet you Dodge turned around and, no, you're not having a deal on these.
Exactly.
we don't need you to sell these. And then,
Right.
50%, and this is a absolutely genuine made up stat right now. 50% of all the Dodge Chargers sold that year were destroyed making that TV show.
I wouldn't doubt it. But the truth of it is, like, it would almost be like this. Let's just say we decided to make a show, and our stars drove. So let's say it's just a 2015 Mustang.
I was going to say Honda Fit.
Okay, or Honda Fit. Well, they're invincible, so you can't use them. We need something that's going to break. So we just make shows. I mean, 2015 Mustangs are everywhere. But if we buy them all up and destroy all of them, now all of a sudden it's rare. And then you move on 15 years, and now all of a sudden they're not around. They went to, I don't know if you had the A-Team show.
Yeah, we did.
So they also destroyed a ton of those GMC vans.
They still look cool.
They do. And what's funny, though, is if you are an A-Team aficionado, in a lot of the action sequences, you'll notice that the van goes from having square headlights to round headlights because I guess they were using Chevy ones, which had round headlights.
I think it's just the van's concentrating. It goes from bright, wide-eyed to squinting.
Yeah. But that's what it like, and nobody, I mean, we were little when that show was on. And I was little when Dukes of Hazzard was on. And not to make this, like political or anything, but like I had no idea who General Lee was when I was a little kid or what that flag, like it was just a cool orange car that jumped over stuff.
And broke.
And gave a whole generation of kids a totally misrepresentation of physics while driving.
Also, how you get in and out of a car. Because after watching that, I insisted on going through the window, and my dad got very upset.
Of course.
My grandfather got deeply upset when I started doing it on his Jag, and he had an XJ12.
Did you slide across the hood?
I tried.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that
he was so upset with me for doing that stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure he was.
And I see it now. I see it now.
And I would imagine that your grandfather's, he's part of that greatest generation. And it was probably a bit more prim and proper than, necessarily Uncle Jesse would have been, per se, if they were the same age. But I always think about that. And I don't know what, if push came to shove and I had to pick my favorite, like, fiction car, I don't know. It would be hard not to pick Kit. It would be very hard not to pick Kit. For those of you who don't know what Kit is, it's from the show Knight Rider. It's a 1982 Pontiac Trans Am. And it was awesome because it was like alive. Like the A-Team van is sick with that red stripe and everything, but it's just a van. Kit was like amazing.
For me, it would definitely be the car from Danger Mouse. And if you were raised in the UK, you know exactly what I mean.
I know Danger Mouse as well.
Oh my gosh. It looked like it was penned by Shijaro.
Yeah. That was a great show.
Oh, it's fabulous. I still watch it now with the kids. I'm trying to get them interested, and I think it's me that likes it more than them.
Oh, absolutely.
Reliving my youth. And he lived in a mailbox. How cool is that?
It used to be on Nickelodeon in America.
Wow.
So my sister and I used to watch when we were little because we thought it was so funny.
So anyway, you've got the Danger Mouse car, penned by a pretty good one. Shijaro, looking like a Lotus or a Lamborghini, with wings, flying all over London, with massive afterburner engines in the back. I mean, that's definitely up there for me.
Yeah, and you know what? And we're definitely talking about cars though from our youth, because now it's a lot different. I mean, just the movie Cars alone, there's some really awesome fictional cars in there. Although I just Googled Danger Mouse car, and apparently someone made it. I don't know what this is from, but it's a Reliant Robin.
Oh my word.
And what's the mouse's sidekick, the like bear thing. Penfold is in this.
He's a mole. That's why he wears glasses, so he can't see very well.
So he can see. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Oh my gosh. Know your
It's been a
pop
while.
culture, my friend.
It's been a while. But I didn't know he had a Reliant Robin. Maybe that's what his car was.
God, you know who got
I don't know.
shortchanged by the Ministry of whatever it was there.
Yeah. I'm going to have to fire some of those up.
MI5, I think. But I do know one thing, to bring this absolutely back on topic, is Danger Mouse's letterbox was very close to the Grenadier pub in Belgravia.
Really?
Yes, I just made that up because we need to get back to talk about what we're supposed to. People, quite frankly, are turning off right now.
Yeah, they're turning off. All right, so let's spin.
Lights are surging.
The drive was
power
great.
Is switched off.
The drive was great. The little bit, I shouldn't say a little bit. I drove a decent amount. In what I said in my post, if someone read it, so sorry if you've heard this before, but it was easy to drive. I thought it would be like hard to drive.
I thought it would be hard work, and I said that. I thought I'd be, rowing on that steering wheel, and no, it was really as easy as a Land Rover to drive.
Yeah, and having, well, not the fit obviously, but having come from a quad cab 1500 Sierra, that was lifted, and before that a F-150 Raptor. They're big vehicles, so I'm not unaccustomed to a large vehicle, and I didn't feel that was that the Grenadier. It had presence, but it was certainly drivable. Now would I want to drive that if I lived in Manhattan? Probably not, because the turning circle, like if you had a parallel park and stuff, I guess that could be a little difficult. But that's not really the case for, I would imagine, the bulk of Americans who are going to buy them. That's just pure speculation on my part.
Yeah, but not just Americans, but the bulk of people worldwide. Is the turning circles. Oh, that's what it is. It would be nicer if it was smaller, but we'll work it out and make do. It was easy. Yes, easy to drive.
Yeah, easy to drive.
I was thinking on the way up the canyon rather than coming down, it was holding onto the gears a lot and it was revving quite high. That could just be down to how the gearbox. It was a new vehicle. It was 2,000 miles in it or something. It was really, really low.
I don't work.
It was super low.
Right, because that transmission, I think the whole drive.
Maybe a couple of hundred. Well, it's adaptive, and that's the thing, where the gearbox learns how you drive. Right. And then it becomes more efficient. Anyway, we don't need to get into
no, but the reality of that is, when we go to do test drives, like, people have to be aware of that, because I'm sure a demo vehicle that the sales reps are using, and that's what gets used for demo rides or drives. It's not the same person driving it every day the same way for it to learn. You know what I mean? So it might just be sort of a little wonky compared to what your personal vehicle will be after 2 months, 3 months, 100%. Or whatever it takes. And on that note, to test drives. So in case anyone, I'm sure there's lots of questions, but I think it was off camera that Greg told us this, but not in confidence. It just wasn't recorded. Was that dealers will be receiving 2 demos.
Yes,
one will be a trial master, and the other will be a field master, and they will be pretty much spec'd to spec. In other words, basically the sort of standard issue trial master. So it has steel wheels and it has the BFGs, and a standard,
without the stuff like the
right,
Safari
with no accessories.
Yeah,
right, no accessories. And with respect then to the field master, it has the 18-inch alloys. It has the Safari windows. So they're spec'd kind of like what the brochure says. Yeah, and that way people really can see both things, and then they could see, well, you know what? Yeah, the Trial Master does have the cloth seats, the one that I'm driving. But if I want to feel what the leather ones are like, well, they're in the Trial Master. So it's a pretty smart way to do it.
Yeah, but one thing I'll say about the seats, as we're talking about those, and it's, let's face it, it's where you spend a lot of your time in contact with that piece of equipment. The leather looked great on the Fieldmaster.
It did.
And that was the one with the grey inserts.
Yes, and gray is a loose word.
Well, a very, 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 very light gray.
They almost looked white.
And the cloth on the Trialmaster, they were really, I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you're going to be disappointed regardless of if you put leather or cloth. The seats are really nicely upholstered and they're incredibly comfortable. I've said this on so many times and many people have, but
yeah,
really, really, really comfortable and supportive seats.
The thing that I liked, now I've never sat in a Recaro seat to the best of my knowledge, so this might just
you probably
other people
have on
might
an
know
airplane.
This.
A lot of the aircraft seats are Recaros.
Yeah. Well, not the aircraft that I fly in.
Hang on, your Raptor. Raptor would have been Recaro seats.
No. If they were, they weren't labeled as such.
Oh, they definitely label them up if they're in there.
Yeah,
I've seen Recaro. I know Recaro
were.
is an option. Speaking, as we're talking about Ford, I was reading an article about the Dark Horse this morning. For anybody
the new
knows
Mustang.
that,
yeah.
Oh, desperately want one, but there's no way I can convince even myself it's a good idea. They use, so the standard GT uses a Getrag 6-speed gearbox, and the Dark Horse uses a Tremec.
Really?
Tremec gearbox. Yes, they do. So for people that are thinking, oh, I don't know what Tremec do, they make really, really good transmissions. Heavy duty ones as well. Because that thing is chucking out 500 horsepower to the rear wheels. So yeah, Tremec are not some dodgy fly-by-night outfit that they've picked. It's a very purposeful decision to make the transfer case with those guys.
Oh, absolutely. And we've heard all different sort of things about Dana and them not going with Dana.
I still think if we ever dig down into that, Jeep turned around and said, you are not allowed to sell to those people. We're your biggest customer. The answer
we buy 250,000 of them from you every year. That could very well be.
Buy two. Because you got front and back.
Yeah. That could be very true.
That's how it works. It's like, we do not like this vehicle. We do not want the competition. We want everybody to be forced to drive a Wrangler, which they were for many, many years. In North America, you had no choice.
Yeah. No, not really. The late 60s, early 70s, I think were sort of the golden age of, I'm going to say SUV. I don't mean like a Buick or Chevy Traverse you had in America still, up until 73, you had at that time, late Series 2 Land Rovers. Yeah. You had the first generation Bronco, the first generation Blazer, was it K10? Either way, the first generation Blazer. You had, at the time, the first generation International Scout, which was an amazing little truck.
I love the Scouts.
Amazing little truck. And so if you liked that size, that roughly between 90 and 100-inch wheelbase, all those vehicles were fantastic for that. And then, but they were trucks. They weren't SUVs in that respect. They were riding on leaf springs at all four corners.
They're essentially a car that had an engine.
Yeah.
And rubber tires instead of steel rim wooden ones.
Yeah, basically. And so that was an awesome time. Like those, would I love to have a first generation Bronco? Yeah, I would. Would I like one though that's more of a resto mod and has modern brakes? Yeah, I would. You know what I mean? Like in form, I think those were the best looking little station wagon trucks. The first generation Bronco, the International Scout, I had a Series 2 Land Rover. They were all wonderful.
But not as good as a Grenadier.
No, because if it's what they could have become.
It's true. Incidentally, that is a really, really good point because as people know that we mentioned last time or time before last, we've got a laser etcher now. Those medallions are being created for various people. Yes. Are going to be for sale on the club site, which is all coming super, super soon. It may even be before this comes out, but I doubt it.
It's coming together. it's coming together. And
the stickers and T-shirts and all the other things that people have been asking for, saying, please, can you do this? We gave both Greg and the head of product rollout for Ineos North America received one of the medallions to go on the back of the Grenadier with their names on them. And we sort of test fitted it on the back of the ones that we drove. And I gave these to Greg. I said, here, we've made these for you. And I explained what it was because he had no idea. And his face lit up. And I think the response was, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think so too. And the fact that it's a higher, not only does it fit, it is in my opinion, a finer quality product than the actual badge that's on the rear door.
I'm not going to comment on that. However, what I do realize, and I explained to Greg, as I said, these things are incredibly tactile. I'll give you $10 if it doesn't end up just sitting on your desk and you use it as a fidget toy. Yeah.
Now, look, I can speak to that simply because I've held these medallions in my hand and they are extremely nice. Texture wise, weight wise, thickness wise, it's a very high quality piece of metal. And the badge that I see on the back door looks kind of, it's too shiny for my tastes. I'm not a chromey kind of person. And it is kind of bright. That's on the back of the Grenadier.
But that's okay. That doesn't bother me. One thing, speaking of bright, shiny things, the dealership in LA.
Okay, now which one?
This is the most tenuous link I could possibly think of. I've been trying to say this for the last 10 minutes, but you're talking about cars that people don't care about.
That's what I bring to this show.
Yeah, that comment will probably make the cut. The Australians don't care about your Chevy from 1962. I'm pulling your leg. I'm pulling you like that. Anyway, everybody cares. Everyone cares. So the dealer in LA is in Pasadena, which isn't LA. It's one of the outlying cities that's now been absorbed by the conurbation that is Los Angeles. And their head of sales is Tim Martino. And I spoke to Tim a couple of times. We were playing phone tag for a bit. And finally chatted to him for about an hour. And he was explaining that the owner of the dealership is a gentleman with the surname of Rusnak. He's still actively involved in selling cars and like going to the various dealerships and the franchises that they have and they own and operate. And Tim said that he was speaking to the old boy that owned it. He's 92 or 93 now, so he's definitely getting on in years. And they were talking about Grenadier, and he was just, Mr. Rusnak was just absolutely thrilled that they'd been selected to be the dealer for this new brand. And the conversation that was relayed to me was he was more happy with that than being selected by Rolls-Royce to be the Rolls-Royce dealership for Pasadena. Yeah. He's like, this thing is so cool. He can't wait to get them in, obviously have the dealership built and everything, which everyone's doing now. They're racing to build the clubhouses. Mm-hmm. But he was more enthusiastic about the off-road SUV with the knobbly tires and the plastic floor with the bungs to rent it out than he is with a Rolls Royce that costs $1 million.
That's interesting.
What a cool stat. What a cool
thing. But you know what? And I come back to this a lot. Most of the people on the forum, it's quite an eclectic group, which I think is great. I think that's so cool that the Grenadier's following is already, at least at this stage, and maybe down the road that will change, but at this stage, it's like a Defender in that it's weird because when I use the word classless, there's like a negative connotation to it, like someone who has no class, but that's not the case. Describing a Defender or a Land Rover as classless means that from the pauper to the king, you used it. And that's how I think the Grenadier is going to be. So there's going to be, doctors, lawyers, and those kind of folks buying them. But there's also going to be, tradesmen, plumbers, school teachers. Exactly. So it's a really nice mix. And that's what's so exciting about as we move forward and have club events and get together and see one another, because it's a nice mix of people instead of everyone kind of being the same.
Yeah, I think that'll be amplified as well when they come off lease in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
When people want a new one because it's a new one, or they want to cycle into something different. As soon as these hit secondhand market, that's going to open up the doors to, we've got members that just said this is an expensive vehicle, which it is not cheap. It's marketplace, where it is, and that's it. And that's beyond our control. However, the secondhand market, as I said to Greg, is going to be red hot. We know that there's a lot of members that are on the forum that are waiting for the secondhand vehicles to come up before they can go both feet in. Through no fault of their own, that's just the circumstances that they find themselves in. And at that point, you're going to have somebody that parks the car next to the Bugatti, as well as somebody that the Grenadier is a daily driver for the entire family.
Parked next to a Honda Fit.
You're keeping the Fit?
100% I'm keeping the Fit. Because there's so many reasons why, but more than anything, so people who don't know, my work commute, where I currently work and where I currently live, now I've worked in the same school district. This is my 21st year. And we moved a couple years ago, and that move made my commute go from 2 miles in one direction to 3.5 miles in one direction.
Oh my gosh, the fuel prices must have been crippling.
The Grenadier wouldn't even be fully warmed up yet by the time I get there. So I know this is like crazy rambling today, but that trip was so awesome, and it connects to so many things. For you and me, as friends, for the club as a whole, it's monumental. It really is. I mean, we're all on different forums. So I have accounts on Land Rover forums. I have accounts on Ford forums because I had Ford trucks. I have accounts on they're all over, but it's not like any of those times somebody said, "Oh yeah, I hung out with the president of the company."
You didn't get to hang out with Henry Ford the 7th?
No.
My gosh.
He's too busy ruining the Detroit Lions.
He was tossing burgers on the street front in Venice the other day. I'm like, oh, you again? I just don't. No, I haven't got time, my friend.
Yeah. So it's a pretty cool thing. When am I ever going to get to do that again? I don't think I ever will.
Welcome to the end of the show. That was such a beast that we didn't even get time to present our guest. Well, he accompanied some of you on the off-road test drives and saved the bacon of a whole lot more. Yes, I'm referencing our esteemed forum member Anand, professional test driver extraordinaire. So for his story and a whole lot more, tune in next time. This has been Grenadier Works.